Does that mean we then go to war with Russia? Because that is what it has to mean if it is to be credible. President Trump has a method of operating which the Russians called разведка боем, reconnaissance through battle. Ukraine already has guarantees that have proven to be empty. In Poland, we have no doubt that the threat to Europe, to liberal democracy, to decency comes from Putin's Russia. Numerous war crimes have been committed. Vladimir Putin is an indicted war criminal. And he's also made Russia more authoritarian than the late Soviet Union. There are now more political prisoners in Russia than under Brezhnev. Coming back to your earlier question, I'm not too worried about Europe not having been consulted before the core. I think the core was a mistake. I argued against an early summit because it vindicates President Putin and lowers morale in Ukraine. But when President Trump says that as part of a deal, there will have to be European troops, well, we'll have to be asked to supply them. So sooner or later, we'll have to be involved. But in a broader sense, this is a crisis and a result of Europe having consumed peace dividend for too long. In Poland, we've had a super law guaranteeing the defense ministry 2% of GDP for 20 years. We are now at 4.7 because we are scared enough. And lastly, President Trump has a method of operating which the Russians called разведка боем, reconnaissance through battle. You push and you see what happens, and then you change your position, legitimate tactics. And we need to respond. And I'm very glad that President Macron has called our leaders to Paris tomorrow, and I expect them to relate to this in a very serious fashion. Well, Ukraine already has guarantees that have proven to be empty. Ukraine gave up what was at the time the third largest nuclear arsenal to Russia in return for Russia's guarantees of inviolability of borders, and they were joined by the US, UK, France, and China, and yet have not been acted upon. What you're suggesting is that we give a guarantee when Russia invades. What do you mean by that? Does that mean we then go to war with Russia? Because that is what it has to mean if it is to be credible. There is nothing more dangerous in international relations than an empty guarantee. It harms the recipient because it makes them too brave, and it harms the giver because it passes on the decision about the conflict to the recipient. We shouldn't go there. If we want to give guarantees, we have to mean it.
Hi, hello. Katarzyna Pisarska, I'm the chair of the Warsaw Security Forum from Poland. First of all, thank you really for showing huge unity. I think it's really heartwarming to see how much energy and time you have, all four of you, but not only spent to support Ukraine, especially in the last few days. But I do want to challenge you a bit. I want you to imagine that you have Donald Trump sitting here. And I want to hear, what would you tell him? What is the leverage of Europe on these peace negotiations? What will we bring to the table in a positive manner? But also, as you, Minister Barrot, talked about trade wars, you were very decisive. We will respond if this is not goes the way we want. How could we say this to Americans on the Ukrainian issue? What type of leverage can we give to Ukraine for it to be able to negotiate with Putin and with Trump if that is the necessity? Thank you.
I would tell him three things. Number one, Joe Biden was your successor and predecessor, but he planted the flag of the United States in downtown Kiev and declared on behalf of the United States that the US will be with Ukraine for as long as it takes until Ukraine secures its independence. Therefore, the credibility of the United States depends on how this war ends. Not just the Trump administration, the United States itself. I would secondly tell him that if you allow Putin to vassalize Ukraine, that'll send a message to China that you can recover what you regard as a renegade province. And that would have direct consequences for US grand strategy, for the US system of alliances, and possibly for the future of Taiwan. And I would thirdly tell him that we Europeans control the Nobel Peace Prize. If you want to earn it, the peace has to be fair.